Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's vertical training. We have tons of good information today for you. We're going to hear from Dr. Neal and Dr. Spears. Dr. Neal, can you hear us okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome. All right, perfect. So let's get started. And are you sharing a PowerPoint with us?
Nope, I have in front of me the question list that you sent me.
Awesome.
That I would just kind of go through some of those. I'm probably going to start from the bottom because the list is shorter at the bottom than the top.
Sounds like a plan. Well, thank you so much. All yours.
Okay, so question number 7, starting from the bottom to the top, is what other questions do you have about the program? The very first question says, are we ever going to offer some of the simple certs as opposed to being in an AOS? And so there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of that are coming down the pipe. Is that we are in the process of revamping the degree, the associate's degree itself. We've done one revision already that's been approved by our accrediting body, and we are working on getting those new courses
I think we lost you for a minute there.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Perfect.
Welcome to Zoom. It's such a touchy beast. So we are working on revisions to the associate's degree itself. We have also created 2 diploma programs. One is a diploma in pharmacy technician, and one is a diploma in medical coding and billing. Both of those are currently waiting for approval from Eric Julin, and then we will send it off to the accrediting body, which we anticipate to do by the end of December, and then hope to have those 2 diploma programs approved. Takes about 4 months, so we're hoping by the end of April, and then we will be able to roll those 2 particular diploma programs out, which will also include certification exams. So that answers part of that question. Second question of that component was, can medical billing and coding specialists work for insurance companies? Can they work remotely from home? The answer to both is yes, but it takes knowing the right people and takes working for a health insurance company that is willing to have virtual employees. So typically what happens in that instance is you get your foot in the door working in the physical office, and then as they have remote opportunities and you have proven your value to be able to work independently and mostly unsupervised, then you can move out into that arena. But it's not like, you can instantaneously do that. The last question, the reason why I wanted to start at the bottom, is probably one of the most important, and it says, can students be a CNA nurse assistant with MSIA? This should have been easily addressed and shouldn't really be a question for me. This should be known by everyone who works in this vertical. That is not appropriate verbiage, and we cannot and do not use that verbiage anymore. That has been removed from all of our marketing. That has been removed from all of our information, because we do not and cannot encourage or state that anyone is going to be a certified nursing assistant or a nursing assistant or a home health aide or anything along those lines. That change came about last summer, and that should have already been addressed. So I was a little surprised to see that question. Moving up into the question before that is about externships, which is probably one of the most important aspects that people get a little confused on and have a lot of questions about besides background checks. Our externship program is an on-ground externship. It is currently 150 hours. So a student will move into the externship course, which is Externship 103 at this current time. And that is the very last course they take in their program. And they have up to 4 mods with permission. 3 mods is the norm to complete their externship. So over the course of 3 months or 3 mods, they need to have 150 hours done on site. Externship sites tend to be flexible with students' availability in terms of working another job, having other responsibilities, but sometimes they aren't. And sometimes we are limited in what is available in the area where the student lives. So we start working with the student 5 months from their graduation date. Well, 6 months from their graduation date, 5 months from when we anticipate them to start the externship class. We start having conversations with them about where they live, what do they want to do? Do they want to do medical front office? Do they want to do coding and billing? Do they want to do pharmacy? Do they want to work in the back office doing clinical work? What is their intention? What would they like to do? And then we go from there. We start looking at the available options in their area. One of the things that we run into is that in some cases, our students place limitations and restrictions on what we can do. I can only do this many hours. I can only work this many days. I don't have a car. I need to be able to walk to my externship. So the significant number of limitations they place on the coordinators limit their ability to get their externship done or limit the possibilities of where they can do their externship. For example, a student may want to do an externship as a coder and biller, but there are no coding and billing opportunities in their area. And then they tell us, well, I also don't have a car and I'm going to have to walk. So I need something that's within walking distance of my house. Well, the only thing within walking distance of their house is a pharmacy. So while the student may have one plan, in order for them to complete their program and in order for them to actually get their externship done, they may have to do a pharmacy externship in order to complete. The next question asks, if they don't finish by the grad date, can they still complete their hours later and graduate? Yes, we do have students re-enter later. They may have to drop for a myriad of different reasons, but if they do re-enter later, there is a policy in place and a process in place to where we are notified in advance if a student is wishing to re-enter, because we have to make sure they have an actual start date and are going to a site before we are allowed to bring them back into the program. Doesn't make any sense to bring them back in if they're not actually going to start. Do we make any guarantees the students will get an externship? No, we do not. The student is actually ultimately, at the end of the day, responsible for locating their externship site themselves, but we do have the coordinators on hand who start the process and really help and assist. And we do have agreements, memorandums of understanding with larger organizations like Walgreens and CVS and things like that, and we're working on one with Health South right now to kind of help with that placement structure when we have people who are in areas that there are not a lot of opportunities. We can have agreements with a larger organization and leverage that in a smaller location. But again, the biggest limiting factor we have is typically the student, not the ability to find them an externship site. Let's see. Students can choose an externship site that we do not have a previous relationship with. Typically, that is done through an interview type process. The organization agrees to do an externship site, and then our externship coordinator gets involved and starts handling the paperwork and doing the memorandums of understanding or an affiliation agreement, depending upon the circumstances. So we do have, actually it's happened several times, where students have actually found their own location that they'd like to be at, and we have negotiated it from there. There is no incentive for a facility to have any type of a working relationship with us or our student. It is strictly a volunteer basis. Our students cannot be paid while they are on externship, so it is a volunteer free type employment relationship for the organization, and it is a teaching and learning opportunity for the student. We do have several instances where students have flipped over and been offered employment at the end of their externship, and we always are excited when that happens, but there's no incentive for the facilities to do that, although we have started reaching out to them to see if they want to be a member of our program advisory committee and help, share in their thoughts and feedback in terms of the direction of our curriculum. When they start preparing, we actually started talking about that a little bit ago. We reach out to the students 6 months from graduation, 5 months from the start of their externship 103 class. We start preparing them and getting the expectations of preclinicals done, which you guys have a document on what the preclinicals are that's required. Any questions on externship before I move into talking about the background check? I wasn't watching the chat, I'm sorry.
We actually disabled the chat on this for the recording.
Oh, good. Okay, thanks. Then never mind. Okay, so the background check, there's several questions that were related to it, and I want to make sure that I don't overlook. Okay, good. I want to make sure from the questions. So most of the time, the background check qualifications are pretty simple and straightforward. What we get a lot of questions on and a lot of pushback from SSA and ACs is when we say no, when we disqualify a student. So the first question says, are we allowed to tell the student about specific disqualifications during the interview? If there were extenuating circumstances, their student was a minor when they got a conviction. Our policy is open, so yes, you can explain our policy to them. You can tell them these are the restrictions. You can let them know that up front. Typically what that does is generates a conversation where a lot of times students are very forthcoming with you. You need to be very careful though about what you do with that information, because we have, FERPA and HIPAA requirements, so we don't want things put out publicly that there's a situation. But if a student shares a situation that they're concerned about, you always fall back on policy. There is not an exception in these situations. Matter of fact, we've actually updated the policy at this point in time to include revoked licensure or suspended licensure, because we've had some situations where students have applied recently where they have an irrevocable suspension or a permanent revoked suspension on Department of Health and Human Services licensure. And that will prevent them from getting any type of a job in field in healthcare. So it does not make sense for them to spend time in our degree program when they can't get a job on the other end. We are very clear and upfront about what those policies are. Any misdemeanor older than 5 years can be considered for appeal, depending upon what it is. And DUIs do not automatically disqualify a student for entrance into the degree unless it's been considered a felony. If it is a felony DUI, then yes, it falls under the same protocol as every other felony, and it would be a denial. What constitutes substance abuse? It depends upon the level in which the state decides to charge the student. And again, that does include DUI as well. So that is a state-by-state basis, and many of the states have varying degrees, level 1, level 2, degree 1, degree 2, degree 3 in terms of that. And so we take that on a case-by-case and background check by background check decision. Are you correct in saying that felony drug charges and violent charges, theft charges disqualify a student? Yes. However, theft is a little bit different. If the theft is older than 24 months from the date of application, theft does not disqualify a student. But the other items, absolutely, depending upon the level of the charge and the level of the conviction. And we do have the background check policy, I believe, in the vertical. Do we not, Cora? The background process? I thought
we do. It's on a cheat sheet.
Yeah. So that you definitely have something to refer back to. Question number 4 is, what questions do you have about job opportunities? And the question was, is graduate prepared and is the graduate, I guess I should put a word in there because it doesn't make any sense. Is the graduate prepared and qualified to take the billing and coding certification? Currently, at this point in time, our coding and billing courses are not robust enough in our current program for them to satisfactorily pass the NHA coding and billing certification. So part of our curriculum revision that we are working on in the spring of 2018 is to add in some new approved courses that actually expand and create greater depth in the coding and billing side. And so upon completion of those courses being built and approved and incorporated into the curriculum, then we will have a block of 5 courses that are very well-defined and well-designed, including study guides to prepare them to sit for that certification. And so by the summertime, we should have that in place, and then students can actually sit and actually get that certification. About what mod is the externship started? Mod 22. It's their very last course. It would be great to have an actual schedule of each class and what they take in that order. Well, that is an excellent suggestion, and it actually was also one made by our Program Advisory Committee, our PAC. And so I actually have that. I got it finalized this morning, Cora, so I will send you the document. And it is actually the sequence. Actually, I could share it if you want me to share it with you really quickly. It's the actual sequence of the order of courses that the students will take. Let me see if I can get to that while we're talking. So as a result of the recommendations from our committee members, we actually have several types of, what's the best way for me to say this? Blocks of courses that we put together. One is for the coding and billing. One is for the pharmacy side. And then we've also, as a result of our PAC, we've also incorporated bringing the anatomy and physiology courses together. Let me share my screen. I found the document. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So basically it's broken down into our terms. As all of you guys know, one term is 4 mods. And so you can see the course structure right now. This is actually going to be the structure, the new structure moving forward January of 2018. So mod 1 of 2018, which starts on January the 8th, this will be the sequence of courses that all students take. The only variance to this actual sequencing of courses will happen if they have transfer credit in or if they fail a course and have to repeat. The good thing about that is our courses run every single month. And so if a student fails, for example, let's say they fail Med 109, they can immediately take Med 109 the very next mod and go ahead and continue in their path. So you can see that this is the design of the way our courses are put together. And as far as the diploma type situations we talked about, Com 102, Med 108, Med 109, Med 210, and Med 211, which is 1 course in term 1 and 4 courses in term 2. That is the end of our first block of courses. At the end of that first block, they can actually sit for the coding and billing certification. If you move down through this a little bit further, you see in the beginning of term 3, they have Com 103, PHR 127, PHR 200, 208, and 209. That is a block of pharmacy courses. They will take them together in 1 term, and at the end of that term, they can sit for the CPHT certification exam. And then you'll notice in block 4, we now have Med 111 and Med 200. They will follow each other 1 mod after the other so that they have the anatomy and physiology courses together, and that was a direct request that came out of our pack. So I will definitely share this and send this to you, Cora, so you have it for your vertical. But that was a great question. It was very timely because it literally just happened and got concluded this morning. Another question is if there's specific software that the students need to learn for medical coding, billing, and medical assisting and things like that. We have some electronic courses, Com 102, Com 103, that currently have specific electronic resources in them that assist to get the students ready for pharmacy type databases as well as electronic medical records. But we also have a program called MindTap, which is a third-party software that's integrated into several of our courses that has simulation software attached to it that can help the students kind of get a feel for what it's like in the real world. And we are currently working with a third-party vendor right now, and we are building a simulation database that is just for our students and our student base. And what we will have happen with the simulation database is as the students progress through the program, through that course progression, that sequencing that I just showed you, there will be assignments and tasks that are inside that simulation database that the students will work on in each of their courses successively, and that'll help build up their experience in various areas within a medical practice and within the industry. So they will have more simulated experience to prepare them for when they go to their externship and have their hands-on experience. So that's something that is in place right now and should roll out by the summer of 2018. Many students are looking at this program as a stepping stone to nurses. Why aren't more biological sciences offered here? Because it's not appropriate and that's not the direction of this program. This program was never intended to be a stepping stone to the nursing program, and I will let Dr. Carmen talk more about that in her part of the program, because this program is not well suited for that and the students need a different requirement for nursing to go into her nursing program. 2 more questions that I'll have, and then I will turn the table over to Dr. Carmen. I'm trying to be careful of time. So there's been some questions about state requirements, and there was a question about why we lost approval for the state of New York for the MSIA program. We have an individual within Independence University who manages all of the state requirements for everything from medical specialties to pharmacy to coding and billing to Dr. Carmen's nursing side to the HIM across the board. And every single state is updating and altering their requirements. Same thing has happened in RT. And so it is very important that you become well versed in that document and using that document and be very careful of what you promise and state to students. A good example is the one I used earlier for the state of Louisiana. We cannot place students in a pharmacy externship or tell them that they can get hired in a pharmacy pharmacy job as of January of 2018 because we are not a pharmacy accredited program. We are not a medical assisting accredited program. We are not a coding and billing accredited program. We are working towards accreditation in a couple of programs. That's a 2018, 2019 agenda item, but it is not something that is in place now. So you have to be very careful about how you word these things and how you approach them. And it's really important that you use those resources that you have in your vertical when you have these conversations with students. Let's see. Some questions about certifications. We have a couple of certifications in the program right now. Currently, the CMAA certification, which is a Certified Medical Administrative Assistant certification, is hard-coded into the Med 299 class, the capstone course, and they actually sit for that exam at the completion of the course. It's through a proctored exam at a location nearest the student. We have access to other certifications. Right now, we have access to the CPT, the EMR, and the coding and billing certification. As it stands right now, the student, if they choose to do it, they will be given an invitation to go out to the NHA website to download the study guides and to download the practice exams and to set up the proctoring situation. It is on a student pay basis at the moment. So the student pays up front, the student studies, the student sits for the proctored exam, the student passes the exam, they send their completion passing information to their faculty program advisor along with their receipt where they paid for it ahead of time. Then we generate a PD2 and reimburse the student for that. The CMAA is built into their curriculum and they don't pay for that. That is paid for by us as part of that course. But right now the other ones are not. That will change over time, but currently that is not the process. The only certifications that a student will receive if they pass the certification exam upon completion of the current AOS degree is the CMAA certification. That is it. They have the opportunity to get their CPHT, their EMR, and the coding and billing if they choose, but that, of course, is on the student's own dime. And then the student can be reimbursed, as you know, up to $500 per what is in our course catalog for certifications after that. In the future, depending upon the direction the student would like to go, then we will have access for the student to go into those exams as the curriculum evolves, and then that will become a campus pay versus a student pay. And as those things develop and change, we will let you guys know. One thing I do want to address, and this is something that's in one of the questions, it's not exactly the question, but I'm going to address it anyways, is the Certified Medical Assistant exam, the CMA exam. We are not a medical assisting certified program. We don't have the capability to provide that at the moment. We cannot provide phlebotomy services at the moment. Unless the student is blessed enough to go through those types of things in their externship, which we cannot promise will happen, then the student will have the experience to be able to effectively sit for the program. But we cannot and should not be promising our students that they will be certified medical assistants upon completion of this associate's degree, because we are not a certified medical assisting program. We are not a certified anything program at this point in time. We don't have any accreditation with any certification program at the moment. The students can sit for exams, but our students are not prepared at the current time to effectively pass the medical assistant exam. They don't have the physical experience nor enough content in the curriculum to help them successfully complete that. So be very careful about how you address that with students, because we've had some situations in the last 4 months where this has not been clearly addressed with a student, and we've had some issues in their first 2 mods because the students were very dissatisfied with the situation because they felt like they were misled. So be very careful about that. I think I covered most of the questions kind of in a nutshell. Cora, do you have anything else?
Yes. So actually, Dr. Spears just emailed me and said she will need to reschedule her portion of it. So I was hoping that I could get you to elaborate on some of the certifications and some of the sheets that we currently have in SharePoint that we've received from you. Would that be all right?
Say that one more time.
I was hoping to get you to elaborate on some of the state sheets and the state requirements of the documents that we received from you. And I'll share my screen so you can see.
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. All right, so in our SharePoint, we currently have, and I know you were covering this, and I was hoping to get you elaborate as far as the state requirements. And I know it can be kind of iffy depending on if we're getting our information from the catalog, from the website, because there is some verbiage that is different. But as far as this goes, the state requirements for externships. Could you elaborate on how an AC could use this to help guide a student into the right program?
Okay, so let's just use Arkansas for an example. It's the block 5. So you cannot enroll and cannot tell a student that they will be able to work as an MA in the state of Arkansas with our current program and our current accreditation. So medical assisting is off, and pharmacy tech is an option. Actually, we typically have most of our students right now, our placement rate in externship is about 70% pharmacy tech. Most of that is because of the ease of being able to get them into an externship because of our larger agreements, and also they're more flexible with people's hours than a doctor's office. Let's face it, a doctor's office is going to be open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 type hours, and a lot of our students are also working, and so they have challenges trying to meet their externship hour requirements when they choose that. So a lot of them are actually choosing pharmacy in order to just get it done. And so then we're running into situations of whether or not the state will allow it. So if you look at Arkansas, there's a pharmacy tech registration, which is $105, which includes a background check. It's required prior to their externship hours, and it has to be renewed every even year. And then there's a link that takes you out to the pharmacy board requirements. So what would happen for us and how we would address that from an externship coordinator is 6 months out from graduation, 5 months out from externship course, we would start talking to the student and say, okay, you live in the state of Arkansas. We have some restrictions in terms of where we can place you for externship. Because we don't have a certified medical assisting program, we cannot enroll a student in a medical assisting externship. So we only have the option of doing pharmacy. And so the student would have to understand that or not. And that's why it's very important when you are starting the conversations with a student in the beginning is to know where they live and to know what the requirements are. And so from the very beginning, in the very first conversation, the student says, oh, I want to be a medical assistant when I'm done. And you're like, well, that's excellent. We hope you have that opportunity, but you will not be able to complete an externship in our program in your state because you live in Arkansas and we cannot enroll students in an externship there. So this is this is kind of a guiding document to kind of help you know what your limitations are when you have that initial conversation. Now, of course, the student moves, which we're kind of a nomadic society. People move all the time. That can change. We've had one student who's moved 4 times just in her externship, and her externship is dragged out because every time she's moved, we've had to start the process all over again. So it's really important to look this up. Now, my recommendation is to use the link that is published and handled by compliance and not use anything else, because the link that is handled by compliance is the one that we update every single time we get any kind of information. We are currently working, scroll up to Florida for me. Florida is one of our hot topics right now. So Florida right now specifically states that they have to have prior employment and they must have an ASHP accreditation program. That is not exactly accurate. We actually have pharmacy techs, and my lead associate dean lives in Florida right now, and she's a certified pharmacy tech. And so she's actually putting together the information and getting information directly from the pharmacy board now, because this is not 100% correct. And she's working with NISHA to get the information clarified and then get it in writing so then we can put it in here. So again, it's really important that we're using the same consistent link that we are. And my recommendation, because things are so behind in terms of being updated accurately on the website, because things do change. For example, RT just had 9 states come out saying that they were now requiring a specific registration now for respiratory therapy. These things change all the time, state by state. And sometimes we even have county requirements that we have to take into consideration. So I would not definitely rest my responses to a student or my initial conversations to a student on marketing material or on material found any other place other than the link to this document, because this document is managed. They get information from us and from the states themselves, and our compliance team manages this document. And that's the person who has the best knowledge and the most in the know. So I'm not sure, Cora, if this is the current version, because I don't have my link up. I don't even know where I have it saved on my computer at the moment. But Hannah Harrington is the supervisor over the externship coordinators and the externship department in my department. And Hannah can get you coordinated, or you can reach out to NISHA directly and make sure that you have the most accurate link.
On it. And I want to kind of ask you a question and say if this is an easy way to kind of clarify this for some things, because I know the whole certifications and the degrees can kind of confuse some people.
Sure.
So would it be fair to say that ACs should look at the medical specialties degree the same way that they would look at one of our technology degrees, where they're enrolling for the degree itself? Now, there is possible certifications that come along with the degree, but they should be enrolling for the degree itself.
That is correct. And the thing is that while it says medical specialties right now, the Independence University degree will be changing. We will be changing our degree name to be Associates in Allied Health. So once our new approval for our new program comes back, we will no longer be a medical specialty. It will not be Associates of Occupational Studies. Our degree will be an Associates in Allied Health. And so we need to focus at the moment that we have an associate's degree program, and that's what the student is enrolling. We need to look at it from a degree bearing standpoint, not what certifications can they get along the way. That's bonus points. That's not what we enroll for. We don't enroll students in order to get them a medical specialty certification. We enroll them in order for them to earn an associate's degree in occupational studies at this point.
Perfect. That's what I really kind of wanted to clarify, because I know we can kind of get stuck on the certifications because that's what a lot of people calling in want to ask for.
Right. And that's because it's industry specific. So the wacky nut job part about our lovely industry, which I have been in for more years than some people in this program that are employed by us have even been alive. We have common verbiage that we use in healthcare all the time. We've talked about that before, where we've had training sessions where we talk about verbiage and the importance of understanding that. Certifications are bonuses, and in healthcare is one of the unique areas, kind of like technology, where a certification can actually trump a degree. But that's not what we enroll for. We enroll for a degree program. We don't enroll so that our students can use our material to prep themselves for a certification. That is a bonus. That is like dessert on top of the main meal. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. And so that's one thing that I want to, kind of everybody keep in mind, because everybody knows that the technology degrees can have different, language certifications and everything in there. But that when somebody's enrolling for a technology program, they're not selling the certifications, they're selling the degree almost. And that's the same way that we should look at the medical specialties program, is that, even if somebody is asking for it, we know that we're always trying to help them better themselves and find out why are they focused on the certification as opposed to the degree. And again, if they're really just saying, I really want to be a nursing assistant, then we need to make sure that we communicate it clearly, that they'll need to look up their state's information and what's required and everything along with it, because we may not, depending on where they live, be the best fit for them.
If they want to be a nursing assistant, that anything related to nursing and home health, we can.
Sorry, I meant medical assistant. I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But that's the important factor. So I understand that the job role that each of you guys have is a sales job. I get that. Now, your job is to sell the attractive nature and the attractive outcomes of what this degree can provide that student. But in healthcare, we do get hung up on the certification component. And if you look at any signature block from anyone who works in anyone in healthcare, you'll see that we have 65,000 letters at the end of our names. A lot of those are certifications and they're not degrees. And that's because our populace inside the employment field can function as a certification degree program. Our entire livelihood in healthcare can be certification based. You don't ever actually have to have a degree and you can earn a very good livelihood in healthcare. But that's not what we're providing for these students. That's not the direction that we're heading for these students. And candidly, employers outside, really honestly, of pharmacy, because pharmacy is the only one that's really certification driven and not degree driven unless you want to be a pharmacist yourself. But all of the other job roles within healthcare that this associate's degree can help them get into or help them improve their current employment circumstances is not really based on certification. It's based on well-rounded education. And we've had multiple PAC advisory meetings where we've asked employers, what are you looking for? What do you need? What do you want from your employees? And hands down, unanimously, every time I ask this question in the PAC meeting, it's always, we want them to be well educated on all areas of the medical office. Yes, they want to be a medical assistant, but who walks into the doctor's office and just assumes that I only need to talk to the person who works in the back? Well, is that the person you talk to when you have a billing question? You always ask the nurse, but they always say you have to talk to somebody in the front. Having employees that are well versed on all aspects of the medical office or of the medical experience, our employers find is more valuable than to say they're a certified coder and biller. Because if all they understand is what they need for their certification, they're going to limit their capabilities within the industry itself. Having the associate's degree, on the other hand, is the same thing as having a bachelor's degree, or the same thing as having a master's. You're letting your potential employer or your current employer know that you have a degree that says you are a subject matter expert in this area to this level. That means you have a broader scope of education than just being concentrated on just what you need for a certification. And I really think that if you approach your conversations with your students in your pitch, because I know it's a sales pitch, right? That if you approach it from the pitch standpoint of an associate's degree makes you better versed to handle a variety of opportunities in the healthcare industry than just focusing on being getting a pharmacy certification. Because if your sole purpose is to get a pharmacy certification and to get a pharmacy diploma, well, in the future we can help you with that. That's not the purpose of what our degree program is for. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. And then last but not least, because again, for everybody, we will be rescheduling for Dr. Carmen Spears, her section of it. Dr. Neal, do you have any pointers on what kind of verbiage a student could use or a prospective student could use to look up their state-specific information as far as requirements goes? What could they Google to try and find that out?
Well, there's a couple of places. Like, one of the things that we do when we're providing information to the Department of Education or our accreditor, when we're wanting to get information and provide support for why we want to do something, you can look at the Department of Labor and Statistics, the BLS. And the BLS, if you just Google out there and you put in pharmacy technicians, for example, and it'll go out there and it'll tell you, here's the requirements for being a pharmacy tech, here's the hours, here's the background, here's the average salaries, this, that, and the other. And then you can also, there you go, you can also get out there. I'm in this website all the time. So if you look under like median pay, or go down under healthcare on the left-hand side where it says occupation groups.
So I'm actually going to highlight something else for you guys. So on SharePoint, you guys also have available to be able to go to these types of things, your online admissions in the healthcare vertical. If you look at the healthcare degree links, this is where I've put a possible relevant career for, in addition to the PDF, the program on our website. So this one goes directly to the BLS website on a relevant career. Again, this is where you can search, you can find similar occupations, and this is where she's saying you can go and look up everything as well.
Now go back one slide for me, because that screen actually brought something. Okay, so this is similar occupations. Notice it says information clerks, medical and health service managers, medical assistants, medical transcriptionists, and pharmacy technicians. The problem that we have with these particular categories is that they're not current with the way the industry runs, because medical transcriptionists practically don't exist anymore in the addition of EMR. And so these medical transcriptionists have been kind of repurposed within medical practices, and they're called scribes. So we have to be a little careful about some of this information, because it's still lump sum. Again, this is 2016 information. It's kind of lump sum together. The same thing with medical assistants. What's considered a medical assistant is a little bit gray, because notice it says completes administrative and clinical tasks in the office. That doesn't necessarily mean that they do both. Some places they do just one, and some places they do other, and they call everyone a medical assistant, and they could work in the front office and do billing, or do check-in, or do check-out. So, or they're called patient care technicians, but they're not actually touching the patient. They're actually just working in the front office. So we have to be a little careful about verbiage. And so the more you become familiar with the way things are discussed and the way things are talked about, the more comfortable you'll become with being able to off the cuff respond to student questions. And a lot of times what I know that many of you are facing is the student may be more versed in the vernacular of the industry than you are, and they could throw terms at you that you're not sure what they're asking you or what they're meaning. And my leadership team, which includes myself, and then I have 2 lead associate deans, Carissa Dahlke and Dr. Stephen Wagner. We are more than willing to be able to answer and field your questions. And just so you guys know, this has been a recent change. I just added Dr. Wagner to my team. So anything related to pharmacy, Carissa Dahlke is your resource. She's a certified pharmacy tech. She's been a program director in an accredited program. So anything related to pharmacy or anything along those lines, she's your gal. Anything related to anything else, Dr. Wagner is a good resource for you as well. So you can reach out to
Can you repeat the first name for me, please?
Carissa, Karissa. Her last name is Dahlke, Dahlke. And then Dr. Stephen Wagner is VEN, not PH.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure. You can also look under like the American Medical Association to get generic information from them. The AMA is a good resource to kind of get an idea. You can also look in industry specific stuff for accrediting bodies as well. And then you see the little blue link down there. It tells you state and area data, so you can get specific stuff by state.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Alrighty, so we are just about to the end, and again, everybody, I'm very sorry, but we're going to have to be rescheduling Dr. Spears. It has been recorded and it'll be posted on the blog and on SharePoint. Please keep in mind that you guys on SharePoint, you guys have access to a lot of great different things, and we'll be getting with Dr. Neil and Nisha to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information. But your study guides for the healthcare vertical quiz and the medical specialties one are both located on SharePoint as well. Again, there are all of the questions. So if you're looking to see what kind of things that you should study, they are available there for you. And we'll be sending out a survey after this to make sure if we have any additional questions that we can definitely touch on them. And other than that, thank you, Dr. Neil.
Anytime.